Hello everyone, welcome to the Evangelist Nick Garrett channel. We are finally getting back to our discussion on Just Tell Me the Truth About the Future of Christianity. You can watch part 1 here, and today we're getting into part 2. The facts about the future of Christianity are worth mourning. Really, even skeptics, atheists, and unbelievers should mourn today's data about the state of Christianity. Christian theism has been directly responsible for the high quality of life that humans enjoy. More people live in better conditions and relative peace than at any other time in history. Christian theism, if not the church itself and the thinking that came from her, at least in part, are responsible for that. Christian theism created the very platform on top of which even atheists and skeptics rail on about God's supposed non-existence. Believe it or not, there is a way forward for Christianity. The future of Christian sanctification, the Holy Spirit's work in an individual, is an area of unexplored riches. There is undoubtedly some pursuits that would suggest humans have no role in sanctification. I liken that view to the man who died in a regional flood after being trapped on his roof and eventually overtaken by the water. He prayed fervently from his roof that God would come and save him. Just then a boat motored up, even as the water continued to rise. "Come on, friend," said the rescuer. "No thanks, God is going to save me," said the man on the roof. He continued to pray more fervently than ever. The water continued to rise and his prayers became more desperate. Luckily, a helicopter appeared just as the water reached the man's roof line, and he dropped a rope ladder. "Come on, bud, quickly," said the rescuer. "No thank you, friend, God will save me," said the man on the roof. As the helicopter veered away, the water rose and swept the man away. Now dead, the man arrived in heaven and walked toward an irate Peter at the gate. And the man said to Peter, "Why didn't you all come save me?" Peter looked at the man with scorn and said, "We sent you a boat and a helicopter. What more did you want?" Unfortunately, the idea that men and women have no role in the direction of their Christian sanctification after conversion is so idiotic, it defies logic to even have to clarify in talking. If it were the case that one simply sits back while the Holy Spirit works, any effort made toward morality in the Christian life is a complete waste of time. Perhaps a perfect definition of this type of fundamentalism is suited for such a view. One who abides by narrowly framed religious doctrines even when to do so purposely ignores the reality of the human experience. Obviously, to think one has absolutely no role in sanctification after conversion does totally deny the reality of the human experience in preference to a few doctrinal ideas. Such fundamentalism has smudged the reputation of Christianity more than the corruption of the medieval church could ever do. If the ideas about the future of Christian sanctification presented in my material are applied, perhaps Christianity will help more people to find forgiveness, cope with sin, and overcome the challenges of the human experience in today's world. This book that I've written and these talks present new, fresh ideas about a way forward for people to live well-balanced lives. These ideas also restore Christ to the place of supremacy. People must first accept the reality, the great writers of the new Christian ideas in our time, like Rod Dreher presented in his book The Benedict Option, that we live in a post-Christian country now. Most of the Christian world is stuck in the apologetic mode of comparing it to secularism in the public square without realizing that it's time to ask totally new questions and reframe the approach to how the timeless gospel is packaged. To adopt a new perspective on Christian sanctification, pastoral education must be reframed and expanded unlike ever before. A lot could be gleaned from modern mental health providers who seem to value the idea of balance between one's mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. However, the category of spiritual health is often left to the individual. When a provider does help, it's often with a hodgepodge of varying ideas offered in a strange amalgam of ritual and religiosity that generally fails to produce positive long-term results. Christian sanctification and how the human mind understands God can be viewed in one of four ways that can be graphed, compared to denominational choice and upbringing, and allow the pastor to provide soul care that combats today's biggest challenges. This new approach we're going to learn about relies on data gathered by the pastor in much the same way as a doctor or mental health provider would. The church leader can also use the tools and data to graph and evaluate what they offer in order to better prepare targeting for their outreach, increase church attendance, gain new long-term congregants. Knowing by the data which way to guide a person will maximize their spiritual potential, quality of life, and relationship with God as well. The answer to why people are leaving the church comes down to a lack of guidelines and methods. This remained well hidden during the age of the nation state because cultures were somewhat compartmentalized. In modern times, the global social philosophy has reacted to Christianity like oil to water and exposed her lack of measurable results considering the boldness of her truth claims. Certainly some of Christianity's decline has not been her own doing. Not many theologians or skeptics prior to the 19th century questioned such things as whether or not certain people ever even existed. Just in the last few hundred years has the faith been forced to look at 2,000 years of readily accepted truth and find supportive statements to appease the seemingly unappeasable nature of higher criticism, which abandons the evidentiary method and trust in primary sources for subjective curiosity that can never be satisfied to a meaningful end. Rejection of God and moral relativism has historically been a sign a given civilization is reaching the downside of its life cycle. In this case, with that rejection goes Christian theism right along with it. Today, one can observe the rise of idolatry, naturalistic materialism, secularism as guiding principles in modern society. Pastors seem unable to observe, identify, and articulate objectivism versus subjectivism and help the faithful to understand them. If a pastor or church leader has the ability to be self-searching, fearless, honest, and let their desire to get real results in their own congregation overcome the bruises one's ego might take during the process of hearing these lessons and reading this book, the result can be a strong and lasting Christianity in the modern age. Admittedly, I am asking a lot of readers and listeners. A man named Erasmus made the same plea to his readers when for the first time a serious comparison between his Greek New Testament and the Vulgate took place in the Latin world, revealing differences in certain aspects of the faith. Please do not judge this work based on only a few statements that are disagreeable or that offend, or on one chapter alone. This is a challenge that if the denomination and chosen doctrine of the listener or the reader, or the resolve not to believe at all, rests on such sound and profound truth, a challenge should be compelling, not cause for refusal or the ignorance of contempt prior to full investigation. Before ending this video, I want to offer you definitions to terms we're going to be using frequently in the near future, but that will help you understand fully the subject material.